Was that your stuff?
What? I don't know if I'm hungry or about to shit myself. G'day and welcome to episode 1 of Guns, Hoses and Stretchers.
Oh, fuck, I wrote staging area wrong. No, I'm joking. Are you going to ask questions straight up? So you're just going to say, welcome to episode 2, we're talking about this, and then bam, fire into
I'll shut the fuck up. G'day and welcome to episode 11 of the Hayden... No, it's not the Hayden Mack Show. I don't know why I said that.
Take 2.
G'day and welcome to episode 11 of the Staging Area. I'm Hayden Mack. This is, of course, Simon Roy Lance.
Hello, everybody.
And
Are you sure it's the staging area?
It is. I know I made a bit of a stuff up then. But anyway, we are back for episode 11. And in this episode, we're going to talk about missing persons. Now, I came up with the idea because I was watching a podcast with Mark Boris, this podcast, Talking Straight, or Straight Talking. It's one of them.
Straight talk, yep.
It's a good
and
podcast,
he was
interviewing Michelle Laurie, the comedian.
Oh, yeah.
And she's got a podcast, Australian True Crime. And they were talking about how. So there was a part there that, she was talking about how people come to her and lesser known cases come to her and sort of bring light to it and hopefully get some sort of traction to help solve some cases maybe. And she was saying in that there are families once the police have done everything they can and can't afford to put any more resources into it, they go and search themselves.
Yep.
And so there's people out there probably on their weekends trying to search for their loved ones.
Yeah.
And I would never have thought that was happening.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. There's like private investigators who, like their sole job, their sole business that they have is purely looking for missing persons.
Wow.
They don't do any other kind of private investigation work. They purely just work for families trying to find, cold case missing persons or whatever it is, trying to find people's loved ones or whatever. There's pretty big business in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not,
Well, when you look at
concerning
the reasons why people run away or go missing, it's some of them that are like, okay, that's understandable. But then there's others that it goes into a dark place.
Oh, yeah. There's probably more dark stuff than what people realise too, I think.
Yes.
That's my belief anyway, but yeah.
So, like, you've got people voluntarily disappear.
Yes, let's have a look at that one quickly. Voluntarily disappear. This is the category where people just want to disappear. They've had enough in life, whatever it may be, and they disappear. And they then sort of fall into 2 categories, I would say. They fall into the category where by disappearing, they literally take their own life and they do it somewhere where it's unlikely they're ever going to be found. And there's plenty of those places. We know that. And then there's the ones who disappear, create a new identity, be it here or overseas, and literally just disappear. That person who they were disappears as far as the government and everybody and their loved ones are concerned, but they're actually living a life somewhere else. New identity, new person, altogether new persona, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, they're still the same person.
And that's what they say. A lot of people in Australia go to the Northern Territory. And that's where they go and disappear, apparently.
There's a lot of talk about that. How I guess because it's such a big place. It's such a big place, but it's not overpopulated. You could pretty easily get yourself into a remote community No one really knows who you are. Go work on some big cattle station where no one really asks a great deal of questions about who you are. If you work hard and you seem like a good person, then no one's going to go digging and voila, you're a whole new person almost. Yeah.
All right, number 2 reason is the mental health issues. So people with mental health disorders may become disorientated and experience episodes of confusion that lead to them going missing. So that's understandable.
Generally they're found along the way somewhere, and if they're not, it's probably because they've passed away somewhere, and again, they've been lost in an area where you can't really find them for whatever reason. But I would say most of those people are generally found.
Number 3 is family or relationship issues. Conflicts with families or troubled relationships can result with people leaving without informing others. That could be down to domestic violence as well.
Yeah, I reckon I guess, almost goes back to the first one. People had enough, whatever, disappear, so they don't have to be a part of a family or whatever anymore. And then obviously you have got the domestic violence stuff where people either, run away and again change their identity and become a new, sort of new person, so they can't be found, or they may disappear because of family violence, as in, there's something dark and sinister and someone's had a hand in them disappearing.
What else we got here? Number 4 is substance abuse. Can lead to individuals to disappear as they may become consumed by their dependency, often losing contact with loved ones. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you
It's
probably
one thing I would never have really thought.
No, that happens a fair bit. Again, that substance abuse leads to mental health issues. It always does. Anyone who sits there and says taking illicit drugs of any kind is good for you, that's just factually not correct. It's been proven time and time again. I was actually listening to a study during the week about teenagers and cannabis use and the long-term significant damage that it causes to your brain and all that sort of stuff. But that's probably for a whole other podcast, but or another episode. But yeah, certainly, abuse of drugs leads to mental health issues, and then people either move away from the family and the connections they've got because they don't like being told to stop, and they want to kind of just continue their drug use. So they kind of, just disappear. People know they're out there, but they just disappear. And then also you've got that dark side again where people who are involved in that drug industry end up doing things that they probably shouldn't do or shouldn't be a part of, and they either end up getting taken out by somebody or they commit some kind of significant crime and then they make themselves disappear so that, they can't be found for the crime that they've been involved in or whatever it may be. So, yeah, drug use definitely, it's a big one.
Number 5 is criminal activity. Yes,
big one.
We've spoken about that in previous podcasts. That which one was it? There's something about the National Register when we mentioned that, and you were saying that people could move back and forth between states
quite easily
if they're not under. Or if they're not on the police radar in a certain state, they can live a normal life. Where in Victoria they're looking for them.
Yep, they can float. They can float in and out, and we know every single day, both nationally and internationally, crime gangs are moving their people around because they've done whatever task it is that they need to be done. They're hit or whatever thing it's involved in, and then the heat's on, and they get them out of the country pretty quickly and move them to another part of their organisation or whatever it may be. And then there's the other side of it too, like you're in that criminal world, and if things go wrong, and potentially that crime organisation or whoever's now going to have heat put on them that they didn't need or didn't want or whatever it may be, you end up swimming with the fishes with some concrete blocks attached to your feet or whatever it may be. old school style. But
Yes.
that's, you get into that lifestyle, you have to expect that these things are going to happen. That's, it's not fantasy. It's the reality. So
The sixth reason that people go missing: natural disasters.
yeah, this is actually a really interesting one. I wasn't expecting you to have it on your list, but it's very true. There is, you get massive natural disasters that take place, and
I think you could go back to 2002 with the Boxing Day tsunami.
yep. But there's two components
How many
to it.
people there's a lot of people that would have disappeared because of water and stuff like that. But there's another one.
Also, the people who see the opportunity and disappear.
Yes.
So going back to the original ones, like the ones further up your list that we've already spoken about,
Yes.
there is people who were already considering, how do I get myself out of where I'm, maybe they're in significant debt, maybe they've just had enough, maybe whatever it may be, all right? And an opportunity like that arises and they see that opportunity and go, you know what? I have an opportunity here to just disappear. People would assume, people saw me out and about in that area. If I just disappear now, they will just assume that I was taken by the tsunami or I was taken by the bushfire or I was, whatever it may be. So again, they're still lost, they're still missing, they're still gone, but they're probably actually living a life elsewhere under a completely different, set of details or whatever, because that's what opportunity arose. But then there is the people who do go, there is legitimately people, you look at the tsunami where they go, we haven't seen these people, they've never come back, but we've never found them. They probably got taken by them. You just have to assume. You just got to assume that they were taken by the tsunami or whatever it was.
Okay. This one says people can go missing because accidents including car crashes or hiking mishaps in remote areas can result in people going missing. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is probably thinking, why would people be reported missing? So if you're in remote areas as well.
There's an interesting one around... So hiking, people going missing hiking, that happens every year. Like people go hiking and they disappear and whatever it may be. Now, there's lots of different reasons. Someone may go hiking and literally, you go hiking in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, you can take a wrong turn and never be found again.
Well, during COVID,
Literally.
here, up on the high country, you had the couple that were murdered, but then also there was hikers that went missing during that time as well.
So that's the Button Man. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
That is definitely an episode that we need to do. We need to talk about the Button Man, and we probably need to talk about that whole high country. Because that's a whole that's probably you and I on tour in the high country showing people
trying to get lost while
not try and get lost. We'll take an EPIRB with us. We'll take a couple of EPIRBs with us. But I reckon that is a whole episode in itself, which we might even, we've spoken about doing some trips, some YouTube type trips and stuff, interviews.
What is it?
And shows and documentaries. Yeah,
that's what
I reckon that's one of the ones we'll add to our list is the Button Man and the high country and all that stuff. But to go back, there is also there's a case here in Victoria that I know reasonably well because I know the people involved, I know the family involved, and I know the officers who were involved in part of the investigation stuff. There was a well-known prison official here in Victoria who a few years ago he was quite a high-ranking officer in corrections, disappeared. Now they know he went into the high country because I think his vehicle's there. They know that. He went hunting. He was a very good hunter, a well-known hunter, and hunted in the high country often, but he never came back from that trip. He's never been found. He's never been located.
Okay.
There's been documentaries done on this individual, Mr. Prideaux. The family's been torn apart by it because part of the family thinks that he legitimately disappeared, he's legitimately been lost in the high country. And there's other components of his family who believe that there's foul play involved. and that there's more to the case than what is being led to believe. Now, if you're in that environment and you know people, there is a ton of significant rumours around that case in particular. As I said, there is a documentary on it. That documentary goes deep into it, so I won't go too into it. But you can, I'm not sure what the documentary is called, but you can certainly find it and look it up. It's a good documentary worth watching. It's quite interesting. Some of those family members are local to here, to where you and I are recording right now. Some of them are very local. So, yeah, there's those cases like that where there is people who legitimately go hiking and disappear by mistake. And then there's the cases where people go hiking because they know it is potentially the best place to disappear. And if you go into the right places, the Blue Mountains, the high country in Victoria, there's a number of other locations around Australia where it's well known that people just disappear. It is what it is. Car accidents. It's funny you said car accidents because car accidents is more of a amnesia type sort of thing. There has been cases where people have been involved in accidents and got out of their car and walked off. And other people have tried to stop them, saying, "Hey, stay with the accident," and they've just walked off, and they've never been found again.
Shit.
Yeah, so I don't know how common it is, but there is cases. I certainly know that there is cases where it has occurred before. So it's a bit different.
Wow. Number 8. This is where it gets dark. Human trafficking. Unfortunately, human trafficking is a serious issue, and victims can be forcibly taken and go missing.
This is a big one. This is much bigger. I think we've touched on this before in one of our earlier podcasts, like very briefly, but this is a much bigger problem and is far more common. Even here in Australia, people think that it's not, but it fucking is.
Oh, yeah.
All right. It is. Human trafficking is huge, and it is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger literally by the second, every second of every day, globally and here in Australia. It is becoming a big problem. And it varies from young children who are being taken to be put in as sex slaves or whatever it may be around the country and around the world. And it goes through right up to even adults, who are taken and used for whatever purposes. These movies that we see about human trafficking, people in big containers and children being taken and sold as sex slaves and even adults being, it's true. Like there's a reason they put them in movies because it's fucking true. And it's becoming really bad. And here in Australia, anyone here in Australia who wants to bury their head in the sand and go, "Oh no, Australia is not a part of that. That stuff doesn't happen here." You got rocks in your fucking head because it's happening.
There's plenty of documentaries.
There is a ton of documentaries. Yeah. There is a ton of police investigations and cases that tell you that that's going on. We see it all the time. You see all the time people being charged in this country for being a part of international sex rings. What the fuck do you think that is? That's human trafficking. But instead of them saying human trafficking on the news to make it sound less bad, they say, "Oh, it's an international child sex ring." It's fucking human trafficking is what it is, and it's also a sex ring with young children. Like, that's what it is. Media, grow some fucking balls, say what it is, because we need to start making it more in your face to people so people pay more attention to it. There's a really good movie out at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it. I tried to find it before. It's just started getting played here in Australia. Freedom Speech of Freedom. I'm gonna have to find it now before we finish so I can tell people. But the whole documentary is about human trafficking globally.
Yes.
Most of the mainstream,
it's based on true story because
it's based on true stories.
I forgot what type of agent he was beforehand, but then he went in. He was asked for help.
Yep.
And then went over to somewhere in South America and was helping
get people out.
Get all these people. All these young children.
You get but again, the mainstream media don't want to talk about the documentary. and big cinema outlets.
There's a lot of conspiracies about the thing.
Oh, there is
as well.
There's a lot of
you see a lot of TikToks of people in cinemas watching this movie, and apparently there's issues with the film or the air conditioning or just
bits
weird things, and they offering people their money back.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a very strange conspiracy when you really start going into it.
Yeah, I've seen like they've been showing it a lot up north around Queensland. I think there's some in Perth and whatever else. I'm trying to work out when it's going to be played here in Melbourne so I can go see it. But it's all in small cinemas because the mainstream cinemas don't want to play it. They don't want to be a part of it, which is again bullshit.
Yeah,
like it just proves they're all a part of that juggernaut of, we don't really want to show people this because this isn't really great. Well, maybe you should fucking show people because we need people to see this sort of stuff. We need people to know this is going on. I was a part of, and when I say a part of, I was a very small part of a human trafficking incident or case when I was in the police force.
Yep.
Which just fucking blew my mind. It really made me wake up to human trafficking. I didn't think it was a thing. Like I knew it was a thing overseas.
Yep.
Didn't really think it was happening here in Australia. Was a part of this case for a very like for 45 minutes. We were probably a part of the most intense part of the case for 45 minutes. But I went home that night and started Googling because I needed to know. And I'll explain the case to you if you want. You want to hear it?
Yeah, we've got plenty of time.
So plenty of time. Chats with Simon. So obviously, so we're going back 2000 and what was it, squad 10 of 11, 12. So 2012 roughly.
Okay.
Give or take. Actually, no, it would have been 2011 because it was just before we graduated. 2011, 2010, 12, whatever. So anyway, I was the junior member on the crew, and we had a crew of 3 that day. Country station, so I was based north in Victoria at this time. You'll imagine you probably know where, where. So we were there. We were on shift. Our duties that day were basically we were a free-for-all unit. So we had a sedan. There was 2 senior members and myself, and we could pretty much do whatever we wanted all day, both reactive and proactive policing. So we were going to do a bit of walking around the streets, and we're going to do a bit of traffic ops, and would respond and back up our van and other units in the area if they had a job that they needed help with. We could pretty much do whatever we wanted for the day. It was one of the good days when you used to like going to work because you weren't stuck on the van. So it's about 10 o'clock in the morning, I think. We were out doing some traffic, and our sergeant called and said, "Look, we've had a phone call from an undercover unit, a specialist undercover unit that comes out of Melbourne. They're currently tracking a white Ford station wagon, and they're heading north on the Hume Freeway. They're going to be in and around our location about 10, 15 minutes. I need you to get yourself to a position on the freeway. You need to be radaring the traffic and make it very obvious that you're radaring the traffic. When you see this vehicle, you're going to lock onto that vehicle and you're going to take up a position behind that vehicle and follow it for some time. Once the undercover unit that's tracking them confirms that you are behind the right vehicle, they'll give you the approval to pull the vehicle over. But before you pull that vehicle over, you need to ring this phone number, or you need to ring these guys and have a chat to them now, regardless. They'll explain to you what's going on and why they're tracking that vehicle and the dangers and all the things that need to take place around the intercept of this vehicle. Our sergeant was in the office. He said, I'm coming out as well. I'm going to be a little bit further up the freeway, and I'm going to get the van to come with me as well, and we will hide in the trees so that this car can't see too much police, because if he sees too many police, he's going to run. We're like, oh, okay, it's a bit odd. It seems a bit strange, but I'm all excited because I'm a new cop and all this is going to be fun as. So I'm pretty pumped up. So we set up our car on the freeway, and we're radaring, and we're radaring vehicles, but we're not really radaring them because we need to pay attention for this vehicle that's coming towards us. We call these detectives, they are an undercover unit, specialist unit. We call them, we see what's going on. They said, look, we've got this male, an Asian male, who's driving this white Ford station wagon. He's heading north on the freeway. We believe he's trying to get to the Sydney airport. We're pretty convinced that there's going to be a female in the back of that vehicle who is sedated, and she's probably buried under a whole heap of stuff, bits and pieces. To the naked eye, you probably won't be able to see her, but she's going to be, we think she's in that vehicle. We can't say 100%, but we're pretty confident she's in that vehicle. We can't allow him to get over the border, and we certainly can't allow him to get to the airport in Sydney, because if he does, he's going to take this girl out of the country. So we were like, okay, and they're like, this bloke's probably going to be armed. He's pretty dangerous. He's generally fairly dangerous. He's certainly doesn't like authority, and he's a part of one of the largest, most violent, most dangerous international crime gangs that you can come across. So this guy isn't going to be afraid to take us on, potentially. And they said, expect that it may become a pursuit, because he's probably going to try and run. And if he runs, this pursuit's going to go until we get that car, until we stop that car, be it here or in New South Wales. We're not going to give up on the pursuit, which is pretty rare, because normally they're going to, if it goes into pursuit, they just stop. But they're like, no, we're going to, this pursuit, if he goes, we're going to intercept him regardless. So pretty excited, pretty J'd up, pretty pumped up for this, for what's going to take place. So we set up on the road. Now they were a few car lengths back, and they're obviously in very unmarked cars. They're using vehicles that you wouldn't normally, see policing, because obviously that's their job. They're undercover. So we basically waited, and all of a sudden we saw the car come around the corner. So we locked on with the radar just to make it look as realistic as possible, so this guy would think that we were just radaring traffic. He did happen to be going a little bit too fast, so it kind of made it a little bit easier for us. Not so great for him, made it slightly easier for us. We basically got in behind him. We followed him for a fair bit of time, just confirming between us and the detectives in the cars that were way back to say, it's definitely this vehicle, this is the rego, this is the male we saw. They're like, yep, that's the car, intercept. They would wait back. So once we intercepted, we actually kept them on the phone to let them know exactly where we pulled over, because then they were going to pull over further back so that he wouldn't see us, just in case she wasn't in the vehicle. If she wasn't in the vehicle, they didn't really have enough to hold him on. But if she was in the vehicle, they were going to be able to get him for abduction and whatever else. So I remember we pulled the vehicle over, and one of the senior members stayed in the vehicle so that we had somebody in the car in a position to block traffic or whatever if we had to in a hurry. Myself and one of the others got out of the car. The senior member went and spoke to the male, and I was basically just doing the normal off-sider check that police would do, where you sort of walk up along the passenger side of the vehicle and you look in the vehicle and you have a look around and stuff. We noticed very quickly this male, I should go back just slightly, we almost went to pursuit, because he changed lanes a couple of times, and he knew that we were behind him. We had our lights and sirens on. He probably went for a good 3 or 4K before he decided to pull over. So we were seconds away from calling pursuit. We were actually having the conversation with the detectives to say, look, he's not pulling over. He's trying to change lanes. It's going to go to pursuit. And they had just given us the authority to basically call pursuit, and they were going to make phone calls to make sure that people further up the chain didn't stop the pursuit, that they'd let it run. And they were going to organise for the air wing and support from New South Wales, even though we were some distance from the border, but start getting everybody in place, because they didn't, if this guy ran, we needed him. But just as we went to call pursuit, he pulled over. But he didn't put his vehicle in park. He left it in drive and left his foot on the... So when we got out of the car, we were like, this guy's either going to run or he's going to start shooting, and then do both, potentially. When we got to the car, my partner instructed him to put the vehicle in park, which he did. But he was very... You could see he wasn't nervous, but he was watching us, and particularly watching me, because I was kind of like the free person who was checking his vehicle. I was looking at the vehicle. And so he was watching us a fair bit. My partner kept in talking, just having a chat to him and stuff, and said, where are you heading today, all this sort of thing, because the vehicle's registered to the other side of Melbourne. So he's like, what are you doing up here? He tried to tell us he was going up there for work and going to do some fishing as well. And there was a heap of shit in the back of this station wagon. There was so much crap in this car, it was hard to see anything. But at the last second, as we were about to head back to the car to go back and talk to these detectives, as we were walking past, I noticed on the back seat there was a blanket there that had shit on top of it, but the blanket moved.
Shit.
And I was like, fuck. And I looked at my partner and across the thing, and I pointed in at the car, and I can't remember exactly what I did, but whatever I did, he kind of cottoned on that I'd seen something, and he sort of looked, and he's looking at me, and then he's sort of like telling me to get closer to the window and look straight down. And I got closer to and I went towards the window, and I looked sort of straight down as much as I could, and all I could see was a human toe, little toe sticking up from behind this blanket.
Yeah.
And he sort of acknowledged to me that, yeah, she's in the car. So we went back to our police vehicle at this stage, knowing quite well that this male may now run. We didn't turn our backs to him because we thought if this guy works out what we're doing, and if he's got a firearm, he's now in a perfect position to start shooting at us potentially. So we sort of, did our normal thing, and we kind of moved back to the car in a safe position. We got inside the vehicle. We told the other senior member, there's someone in that car. We saw a toe. We're pretty sure it's a human toe, like it's not a mannequin or anything. We're pretty sure it's a human flesh toe, and something moved under the blanket. But we still didn't have 100%. I guess visuals. We didn't know 100%.
So at that stage, is your mind fucking with you? Like I've done it in many occasions where you think you've seen something and you're like, no, I know I've seen it, and then you're like, then you start doubting yourself.
100%. Yeah. I was convinced I saw this toe. I know I saw the blanket move. 100% I saw the blanket move. But now I'm like, did I see the blanket move?
Yes.
Was because I remember at the time when I saw that a truck went past really close, and you know how on the side of the freeway, a B double goes past you 110k an hour, everything moves. And I'm like, did the car move because of the wind? And then I'm just thinking I saw the blanket move. But I'm like, nah, fuck, I definitely saw the blanket move. And then I'm looking, and my partner's like, you saw the toe, yeah? And he's like, you saw the toe, and I'm like, yeah, I saw the toe. And I'm like, so because you saw the toe, and then you told me to look at the toe. And he's like, yeah, I definitely saw the toe. And the most senior member's like, did you two fucking see someone or not? And we're like, yeah.
Yes.
There's definitely someone in the fucking car. And the whole time these detectives are going, what fucking unit did we choose to pull this car over, right?
You country bumpkins.
So, yeah, like what the fuck are these country cops doing? So we're like, nah, fuck it. She's definitely, there's someone in that car, 100%. If not, we're about to get ourselves in a whole heap of fucking shit because we're about to arrest this bloke or pull this bloke out of a car and search his car. And we had other grounds to search his car. So that you get taught as a police officer, there's different methods to be able to gain the right or the reasonable grounds, as we call it, to search a vehicle. And we had enough of that to search the vehicle regardless. But we didn't want to fuck up the case for these detectives because the last thing you want to do, if she's not in the vehicle, you don't want to fuck up their case for them. So we spoke to them. They said, look, it's in your hands. If you think she's in there, then you need to go in and you need to take this bloke in their custody and we need to search that vehicle. And we're like, so all three of us get out this time because we're like, fuck, this could go pear-shaped. All three of us better get out. And so we did. And the senior member, I'm going to say attempted to take the male into custody because he realised what was going on and he tried to fight, including he tried to push the male. The male offender tried to push my partner or one of my partners into the oncoming traffic on the freeway.
Shit.
So we requested immediately that any unit was in the area to fucking get to where we were. And we knew our van and our sergeant were like literally just down the road, but everybody was hiding because we didn't want to spook this bloke. Now we fucking needed them. So everybody's coming. Whilst they're doing that, we opened up the door and we pulled the blanket back, and here's this female on the back seat, completely sedated, completely fucking out of it, heavily sedated, and she's on the back seat. And we were able to talk. She was breathing. We were talking to her, but no, she had no idea. I don't think she was heavily sedated. Very small Asian female. So we got this male into custody. All the detectives turned up. All the undercover units turned up. The van turned up. We had an ambulance come to get this girl, and we had to go with her to hospital. Once we had her, we had to stay with her.
Yep.
So because they were concerned that if this criminal organisation found out what had happened, they would send someone to the hospital to get rid of her.
Yeah,
to,
right.
to take her
Okay.
out. So we had to. She was under police guard. So my partner went in the ambulance with her, and I drove. So we go down, and so I could pick him up because we went down, and then once we were down there, the Melbourne units, the police units down there, and this detective unit, and we did this specialist unit, they arranged to make sure that she had coverage overnight in the hospital. And they took this bloke back to Melbourne as well. He was transported back to Melbourne. Without going into all the detail, because after that I don't really know what happened. Like we we did our statements and stuff, but I have no idea what happened after that. But what we do know is, and I won't mention the organisation because I don't like to give these people fucking any form of credit, but they were a very large criminal organisation, huge international criminal organisation, one of the most feared and dangerous in the world. This girl had actually been this bloke's partner. So they had been boyfriend and girlfriend for some time. She basically got sick and tired of his violent behaviour and the things that she was around. She got sick and tired of all the drug use and all that sort of stuff, and she tried to leave him. And she had left. They'd been separated for some time. He was stalking her, threatening her, doing all sorts of things. She had started seeing somebody else. And when he found that out, he basically made a deal. So he already owed money. So the criminal organisation that he was a part of, that he was a foot soldier for, he owed them money, which is quite often how these things kind of work.
Yeah.
He owed them money. As far as he was concerned, she had, basically disrespected him and whatever else. So he had arranged to sell her to them, for them to use within their organisation as a sex slave, which this organisation does quite freely around the world. And so he basically sold her to remove some of his debt that he owed to them. He sold her in, and I think the way it was going to work, and I could be wrong here, but I think the way it was going to work is he initially sells her for a portion, so he doesn't get the money because they just take it off what he owes them, and then she goes and works, and if she's a good money earner for them, a percentage of what she earns comes off his debt as well. Over time. So she was he had basically gone to her place the night before and broke in and sedated her quite heavily, and then put her into that vehicle, and his plan was to get her to the Sydney airport because he thought in Melbourne they might pick up on it. That I found out later on was a lie. I found out later on that there was a connection. This organisation has a connection that was working at the Sydney airport at the time to make sure that they could get her onto the plane. So this shit happens, yeah? Now, I'm not saying it's happening every day, but it's fucking happening.
I've worked at an airport and I would never have thought that shit was happening.
Yeah, fuck oath it does.
Fuck.
That was the belief anyway. I can't say that 100%, but that was what the belief was with this organisation.
You
had
could have
people
corrupt
there.
security. Shit.
Fuck oath you could. Easy.
I've never thought of this fucking shit.
Yeah, easy. It's fucking easy as.
What you're explaining to me sounds like a fucking movie script, but
it's
I can
true.
understand. It can be legit.
Yep. So the plan was he was going to just go there, leave the car in the car park. He didn't give a fuck about the cars, and leave the car in the car park.
Oh, there's a lot of cars in the airport car parks if you really look.
No, 100% there is.
Yeah.
And then he was going to. We found other because the vehicle was obviously seized. We found other drugs in the vehicle, and one of the drugs that was in the vehicle. Again, I found this out later on, is a drug that I guess it's a little bit like those who know about Narcan or whatever.
Okay.
Basically, he'd be able to push into her enough to wake her up so that she could walk and move and talk, but she wouldn't be all there. So she probably wouldn't be able to ask for help or anything like that.
Right.
So he'd be able to get her onto that plane and get her overseas, which is where the intention was. That's what the tickets were for, to get her over to a particular Asian country. And then from there, she would have disappeared.
Shit.
Yeah. So it was pretty full on. And I, as a young cop in the country, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is insane. But then I found out that night I came home because you know what I'm like. My brain just goes down like a rabbit hole. And then I started Googling this shit and I went, oh my God. And I just happened to know one of the officers, the senior officer who was in charge of that team. We knew each other. We hadn't seen each other for a couple of years, but we actually knew each other. And I saw him, and it was a good chance to catch up. I then saw him again about 12 months later at another incident, and we had a chance to actually talk this time. And I said to him, fucking, how often does that shit happen? He goes, it's happening daily.
Yeah.
And he's like, and we are not catching, like, we know it's happening daily, but we are not catching these people. These people are disappearing and they're coming in. You know, they're coming in as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot bigger than what people think, and the problem is global. But it's if you're here in Australia and you think that we're not a part of it, you think it's not happening, you think people aren't being taken out of this country or people aren't being brought in through that process, you're fucking dreaming. You're living in some weird world. There is organisations out there now. I don't know if we've got any here in Australia. I've never found any. Be pretty keen to know actually, but there's private organisations out there with you call them mercenaries if you wanted to, call them whatever you want to call them, but there is private companies out there now that are running full-blown military-style operations where families are paying big money because they know that their child was abducted and taken into sex slavery or whatever it may be, and they're paying big money to these organisations for these military-style operations to take place with these private people who go in and get these kids out. You know, and they take out people in the process. They cross international borders, all that weird shit we see in movies and stuff. Where they got, you know, these little groups that go in, and this shit's really happening. And some of them, you can actually find them on the website. Like they've actually got web pages so that you can get in contact with them and hide them. And they don't hide it because they're like, you know what, the governments aren't doing it, so we'll fucking do it. We'll go and protect the kids and look after the kids and go after them. I know one of them in particular.
Okay.
I pay attention to what they do. They're about to set up their first team here in Australia.
Okay.
They've got teams in the UK, Africa, America, South America, and due to the influx and what they're seeing from their intelligence gathering, they're about to set up their first team here in Australia.
Yeah, okay.
Which just tells you how that just tells you how significant it is. Yeah. It's huge.
Just makes you think what goes through people's mind. And that's what I think to this movie that we can't fucking think of the name of. This movie, I think it's there's a what would you say? There's a line in the trailer that mentions so you got drugs. Yeah, drugs will make you money. It'll make you, but it's a one-off. So you got to make more to make more money out of it. And then where with a child or a person that you traffic for sex, you can make multiple hundreds of dollars a day.
Oh yeah,
you can get multiple uses out of it, and you just think that is fucking sick and disgusting. But that's how people make their money around the world.
Oh, 100% you can. And this is the thing, like that these people make, it's not a small amount of money. You know, they make hundreds of thousands, millions off some of these people. I remember reading an article, it was during COVID sometime, so 2 years ago roughly. I remember reading an article where they were basically saying that some of these organisations will rank the best money makers for them, and it's so disgusting because I've got young kids obviously, and I've got two young girls, and obviously they're targeted more than probably anyone else. There was this young girl who was, I think, 8 years old, and for this criminal organisation, it was believed that she was she was worth $2.5 million a year because she had been so badly groomed and utilised, and unfortunately, just because of her general appearance, was wanted by the highest bidders constantly and abused by them constantly, and she was worth about $2.5 million. Now, you look at a criminal organisation that's making money, $2.5 million, they will do everything they fucking have to keep that going.
Yep.
You know, and that's the fucking sickening part about it, is that this is a young kid who's not had a chance to grow up or do anything. That little girl will be killed at some point. Because what is she going to do in her life? Like, they have destroyed every innocent thing about that little girl, taken her from her family, groomed her. At some point, that little girl is either going to take her own life, or they're going to take it because she's going to be less to them at some point. It's just fucking disgusting. Like, it's just... And what pisses me off the most is our government, as far as I'm concerned, our government and governments don't do enough about it. They are nowhere near doing enough about stopping this shit from happening. I've got my thoughts about why they don't, but...
What are your thoughts?
I don't want to end up in prison. Probably get it done.
What can you get done for? Yeah, say allegedly.
Allegedly, not allegedly. I think there's enough evidence, particularly in this country these days, to prove that our politicians are involved in these things. They know about it. I'm not saying they condone it, but I'm not saying they fucking stop it either. You know, I think, you know, you just got to look at where they put our money. When you have policing organisations and intelligence organisations screaming out for more money because they need to keep ahead of the game, and the government goes, yeah, but I really want to build a statue about myself, put it in a fucking park, or I want to spend millions of dollars on fucking private jets so that the current Prime Minister can fucking bounce all over the world being a fucking hero when he's doing fuck all for this country. But he's spending millions of dollars on jets instead of putting that money into intelligence organisations and policing and better educational programs for kids and things like that. When they're doing shit like that, you have to start to question what their fucking motives are. And I question it every single fucking day, because there is absolutely no excuse to not give money to intelligence organisations and policing organisations to deal with things like this and to deal with all the other criminal issues that we've now got going on in our country. Because the longer we sit back, the more harm we're causing ourselves, and the more chance there is for these people to continue to do these things. And it gets to a point where you lose control of it. You lose complete control of it. So, you know.
Yeah, it's a sickening and frightening thought.
Well, it's just, and, you know, the more overpopulated the world becomes, the more this shit will happen, the more criminal organisations get bigger. We can do a lot about it. We can do a lot about it, but it takes government to make those changes, both state and federally, to make those changes. You know, I think we spoke once before about, you know, I have to go back a few years ago, and it was okay for older Australian males, particularly white ones, to leave this country.
Oh, yes.
To go
and do their sex weekends.
Go do their sex weekends overseas in Thailand and places like that, where we know they're doing it with young kids.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, for the rest of us, we were like, this fucking disgusting.
What was it? They can be a
people.
convicted sex offender here in Australia, but you still had access to your passport.
Yep.
Where someone who had declared bankruptcy, I think it was.
You couldn't get your passport.
Yeah, couldn't get a passport if you were made bankrupt.
Dealt drugs at some point.
Something like that.
Yeah. If you deal drugs at some point, we take your passport
Darren
off
Hinch,
you.
That's who made the law.
Darren Hinch was the one who brought it in. But, you know, that was only a few years ago. Now, it doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to work out who makes our laws.
Yeah.
It's government.
Government
makes the fucking laws. So why weren't they doing something about that a long time ago?
Well,
because they just fucking didn't
after
want to.
the last 10 years of the Liberal government, have you seen what's happened there?
Wow.
There's a lot of sex scandals in that joining parliament.
Fucking heaps.
That's what's just come out now. I'd hate to think what in the olden days.
Oh, look,
it was like
when you have people with money, power, their own fucking self-absorbed expectations and whatever else it is, and they're wheeling the axe every day and not giving a rat's ass about it. There's all that testosterone and fucking high value and cocaine and all the other shit that they fucking. Oh, sorry, if you think that your politicians don't take cocaine, you're fucking dreaming. You know, all this shit that they're a part of, all these things that they fucking do.
Marijuana's legal in Canberra.
Oh. I didn't want to say it.
Drugs.
But, you know, this is all of these things, these people who are in power in these political fucking things, and we put them in there, and then we think we can't take them out. We fucking can. They're a part of this process.
That's true. But is it because society's just like that's the way it is, so be it?
We've become...
we either get in a Liberal Party or a Labor Party.
Yeah, because we've become desensitised, and we've just become so... They've been so good through the media and through their education processes at schools and all those sorts of things at making people not understand the process or the power or the capability that we have as individuals and as society and community. All right? They've made us believe that they are the people who wield the power. All right? The people in Australia have forgotten they are not the people with the power. We are the people with the power. We are the ones who can shut them down. We are the ones who can take them out of power again. We are the ones that can take back our country and say, you know what, we don't want your political system anymore. We want a new political system that we come up with that is based on what we want and need for our people, for our protection, and for the prosperity of our country. As soon as people in this country wake up and start realising that and start seeing that and stop giving the power to these fucking politicians, these fucking muppets, the better off we're going to be. Because the two-party preferred system, Liberal or Labor, that's a fucking joke. It's a lie. The whole system is incorrect and corrupt, and they're not even following the processes they're supposed to be following. It's our country, not theirs. It's time that people wake up and went, you know what? It's time to start pushing back against the politicians as quick as we possibly can and the media outlets. Start holding them both to account. Take back the fucking power. And when we do, these things will start to get sorted out. It'll take time, but it'll start to get sorted out for the protection of children, of all the people in the world. It's for the protection of fucking children who don't, they're innocent kids. They don't have the luxuries, you know, like I was saying to someone the other day, the luxuries that we had as kids versus what our kids now have is completely different. You think about it when we were kids, right? Generally speaking, okay, the safety, I'm talking about the safety of what Australia was back in the day. Now, obviously, we you know, you always, in history, we had issues. We're talking about the Beaumont children just before, 1966. Yep. 3 kids went disappeared. They're still on the missing persons register because they've never been found. Right? We've never found them or bodies or anything like that, so they're still missing. All right? Fair enough. That was a really bad case for Australia back in 1966, and still to this day, everybody remembers it. You know, you still talk about it. It's still, you know, it's still scary. So we have those moments in history, but they were less frequent to what they are now, with kids disappearing and abductions and sex slavery and all that sort of stuff.
Was it Mr. Stinky?
Mr. Stinky?
Was that Carmen Chan? Or is that a different one? I don't know. This bloke who did...
he was.
So whoever abducted Carmen Chan abducted a whole bunch of other girls.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was Mr. Stinky.
In the 90s.
Yep.
Anyway, the day I was born, Carmen Chan was found, the day I was born, her being found was front page news.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
That's a scary history moment.
I know, yeah. So, so she would have been found the 3rd of May, 1992.
Yeah, rightio. There you go. Now you all know how old Hayden was.
Yeah. So that's 31 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, I can remember there was, what was a documentary, Sensing Murder.
Mm.
There was that on Channel 10 and they went down that and I can't remember what his name, whether they called him Mr. Stinky or not.
Yeah, I can't remember now.
Unless that's a different bloke who abducted people.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember now.
But yeah,
how he was connected.
Going through that and it's been happening, but then
But it was different. Like you think when we were kids, like, you know, our parents' rule was you have to be inside when the street lights come on. That was the rule. All right, we could be parents wouldn't even know where we were half the time, but we had to be home when the street lights came on. All right, as soon as that thing flicked on, that pole flicked on, you had to be in that front door. Otherwise, you're in deep shit. Now
it's be home once the school bells rang. Have you seen what's been happening in Melbourne this week?
No.
Was it 4 o'clock at a high school? I don't know whether it was Tarneet or Sunshine. But there was a fight happening there. And then there was a machete attack with young people on a train station.
Yeah, that was a bit. And there was a young guy that was caught on the train the other day in Melbourne he was down from the country somewhere, had a meat cleaver in his bag.
Jesus Christ.
And when he was questioned by the police, he said that he brought the meat cleaver with him for protection because he had to come into Melbourne and he was scared.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today in this episode of Missing People. I think we should, I don't know if we have anything else to contribute about it, but I think we're just talking about the scenarios of how people can go missing. And
I think it's bigger than what most people think it is, really.
Yeah.
It's huge compared to what we, And I think, look, there's probably more. I don't know, we'll probably do another episode at some point. We'll dig in a little bit more. I probably wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about those special, like those organisations that are out there that are outside of the government space because, Ashton Kutcher is another really good one to, we can talk about.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he's got his own foundation.
Yep.
Where they go after people, and he often sits in front of Senate inquiries saying, "Me as an actor and my organisation are doing the things that you should be doing as a government.
Right.
We are the ones that are making it happen because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing." So, but we'll talk. I reckon there's another episode where we can talk a bit more about the private special operations type teams and foundations who are working in this space because the government's just not doing what they need to be doing in that space. Yes, so I think that would be worth, exploring a little bit more. But yeah.
Well, even if you've got to contribute, like have a story that you'd like to talk to us about or anything, get in contact with us. tsa@militum.com.au or on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Get in contact with those. You can send messages. Listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I think Google now. I think I uploaded that last time.
Nice.
To Google Podcast. And also watch us on YouTube and Rumble. This has been the staging area. I've been Hayden Mack.
You are.
That's been Simon Rylance. Hooroo.
See you later, people. Stay safe.